Hello and welcome back to my channel. And this is the mid-year Freakout tag where I'll be looking back at my first half, first half of the year, my reading history, and do some reflection. And this is a pretty widespread booktube tradition, and yeah, let's just have fun and do it. And as usual, there are prompts. I have the prompts here, my note. The best book in 2022. Quite a lot of books can qualify for this. So I'm just going to choose one, and that is Strange Beasts of China by Yan Ge, translated by Jeremy Tiang, from the Chinese to the English. So this book is interesting. Interesting is probably the worst word to describe this book. It is absurd, and I think that's probably the main reason why I like this book. It is absurd, and it's quite unapologetic when it comes to how absurd it gets. Some of the part of this book feels like it's written by a Mad Lib generator, because it's just so weird, random, but sort of logical. So this book is about the coexistence between humans and a bunch of strange beasts or monsters in a fictional Chinese city, and it sort of explores the relationship between the human society and also these various strange beasts, and how they sort of just kind of live together. And there are various relationships that these two groups have with each other, depending on the kinds of beasts we're talking about. There are different types of beasts, apparently, according to this book. And, with different beasts, humans interact with them in different manners. Sometimes they are exploited, sometimes they are respected or fetishized and stuff like that. But yeah, much of this book it's just so weird in a silly way. It feels a little bit like urban fantasy, but at the same time it doesn't really highlights the fantasy aspect of it. It highlights more the realistic aspect, I would say, the relationship between these two groups, that I feel to be much more grounded. Yeah, surprisingly. Anyway, this book is wonderful. If you have not checked out this book, you should definitely do that. I highly recommend it. It's just a wonderful book, and it also has a little bit of meta fictional element to it, which, as usual, makes me feel giddy. So the second question, the best sequel of 2022, I'm gonna answer this question by with the only sequel that I read this year, and that would be Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert, which is a part of the Dune series. I read the first novel last year, and I finished it in December, and I loved it. I watched the movie before that, but I actually have always wanted to read the book first, but then the book was humongous, and so I watched the movie first and then I read the book. It didn't really bother with the experience of reading so much. Rather, I think it helped a bit, with the visualization, because I think I'm kind of crappy with science fiction. And yeah, I would say that this book is quite nice. It's not exactly like I wouldn't say that this is a stand-alone novel. You definitely have to read the first book to read this one. But it feels like a nice continuation of the first one. I would definitely want to read the third one as well, but probably sometime later this year. Maybe not now. My mind is probably not too great on science fiction yet, at least right now. Anyway, the third prompt. New release, I haven't read. I'm not exactly a new release kind of a person. I'm more of a backlist person. But there's one new release book that I kind of have, and I would like to read it sometime later this year. And it's called Bad Girls by Camila Sosa Villada, an Argentine writer. And I don't know much about this book, except that it has some trans characters. It is set in Argentina. This book was originally written in Spanish and it was translated into English by Kid Maude. And yeah, aside from that, I would say I think my main motivation in wanting to read this book is probably the cheeky title and also the cheeky cover. Anyway, yeah, when it comes to books, that's how I judge what to read. The next one, most anticipated release for second half, and I'm gonna say none, because I'm not on lookout for new releases. It's only when a new release sort of got my attention from, however it does that, from reviews, from people talking about it. I only know about a new release once I see it surface somewhere. But if the new release has not come out yet, then chances are I'm not gonna care so much. Anyway, 5, biggest disappointment. And this is also one of my newest reads. But before that, I think it's too glary. Let's see. That's it. Anyway, biggest disappointment in 2022 was this one by Elif Shafak. Unfortunately, The Island of Missing Trees. I mean, I know I have some DNFs, but I'm not gonna count those DNFs because at the end they become DNFs. I actually finished this one, and many times I actually contemplated DNFing this one, but because it's written by Elif Shafak, I must say that I'm a fan of her writing. I've liked or loved all of the books that all of her books that I've read before. And so I just thought, why not just read this one, and so that I could make a fair judgment in comparison with other books. And when I finished this one, I would say this one was kind of bad. Or at least it just does not have that Elif Shafak gravitas that I really liked in her other novels. This one, in comparison, feels it's too sentimental. It's really maudlin. That's one of the issues. In this book, we see the history of two immigrants from Cyprus. They live in the UK and they have a daughter. And apparently one day the daughter screams in her class, and that is kind of like one of the mystery in this book as to why she screams. And at the same time, we also learn more about the history of these two immigrants who are lovers, but they are from Cyprus. They are from different sides of Cyprus, the Turkish and also the Greek side, which makes for a compelling story because that particular history of Cyprus is quite turbulent, and this book sought to explore that history in story form. However, much of this book is also written through the point of view, it's narrated through the point of view of a fig tree, which is a nice concept by itself, but the fig tree also exists physically in this book, and so that technically makes the fig tree a character in this book, which is also fine, except that the fig tree's voice, because the fig tree is a narrator, is just so unbelievably self-righteous, smug, Mary Sue-like. That fig tree is literally a Mary Sue. So I get really annoyed. That's another point about this book that just doesn't work for me. Yeah, so this book, I think it feels like it panders too much on the Western audience, I would say. Through how it literally tries to explain everything as if, readers have to be spoon-fed with stuff. And that's the thing. Elif Shafak's writing, she does not need to spoon-feed people in her other novels. Like, I don't see that. But in this one, it seems like perhaps, I don't know, maybe the publisher or editor or whoever, I don't know, I'm just speculating, they want her to add in those portions so that readers can understand more about the history of Cyprus, or, infos about fig trees. But there's too much info dumping in here. I read this one, I feel like this book is telling me that I'm stupid. I don't usually call myself smart, but sometimes, it just doesn't feel, it feels like the book is insulting you. Anyway, enough of a rant. This is a tag video. Number 6, biggest surprise. And this one was literally a surprise because I didn't expect anything from this book. It was a contemporary fiction written from a point of view of a child narrator, Djinn Patrol on the Purple Line by Deepa Anappara. So yeah, it turns out this book was one of the best books that I've read this year. Probably going to be like one of the best books I've read ever. I really like the voice because the child narrator is surprisingly not a precocious, smart, wise child narrator, but a silly, naive, and dumb child narrator, which honestly something that I love because I am silly and dumb myself, and I suddenly feel like the narrator is relatable. Anyway, it is able to capture that childlike voice very well, and also it plays around with tone. Basically, this entire book just sort of changes tone from the beginning to the end, and you can sort of see it coming, but not in a very obvious way. Like it creeps into this book, like it slowly becomes darker and darker, towards the end. So that one was good, and at the end of the book, it really hit you how different it is from the beginning, and so that sort of acts like a coming of age novel. So that one was good. Anyway, next one, favorite new author. I don't have any author that I really declare as my new favorite author. But there's probably one author that I would love to try more of her writing, and that would be Kavan. I read Ice this year, and I thought it was nice. I didn't give it 5 stars, but I thought it was nice. It had that sort of dreamlike quality to it, and I would love to see her writings, more of her writings. Next one, 8, newest fictional crush. I think I answered this question in the previous, the last time I did this tag. I'm gonna answer it the same way. I don't have any fictional crush, because for me, having a crush has to have that visual element to it. I need to look at that person before I crush on them. I can't simply crush on someone based on some descriptions in a book, even though the description makes it sound like that person is awesome. I need to look at that person. Number 9, newest favorite character. I'm just gonna choose one, and that would be William Stoner from Stoner by John Williams. yeah, this character is just sort of different. I think it's mainly because of how good the story is written. Also, that kind of makes me like this character. But I really like the fact that this character becomes a vehicle to show the idea that, you know, in order to be successful, you don't have to be like have 10 cars, a big house, and stuff like that. And I just like it. I really like that idea, and I really like how this character reacts to his things that happen to him. Some portions of this book, some of his moments in the story, just sort of have that kind of really cathartic feeling to it. Like, you know, you could literally exclaim "Yes, Queen" to this character, even though it's not really like the same tone. But I think you can. This character slays sometimes. And yeah, that's what I feel about Stoner. I probably some, you know, other people will find this book boring, but yeah, towards the end of this book, yeah, this character is, he has his moments, like he's on fire sometimes. So anyway, next prompt. I'm sure I don't miss anything, right? Book that made you cry, and that would be this book right here, An Unnecessary Woman, by Rabi Alameddin. I read this book, and for most of this book, I was actually quite entertained because I really liked the voice of this elderly woman character living alone in Lebanon. And she's really snarky and cynical. But towards the end of this book, it's sort of, the book sort of changes into this kind of like, it feels almost like a Hallmark movie with a bit of, a dash of women's literature, kind of a character change or something. Which is not a bad thing by itself, and it sort of turns into this moment that makes you feel really, makes your heart melt, kind of a thing. And I actually cried because of that. And I was reading this book, and I was reading that part at an airport. I was sitting at the front row of the seats at the waiting area. And I was crying, and I had tears coming out. I didn't care because it was a good experience. I really liked having that kind of experience with a book. Anyway, next prompt would be a book that made me happy, and that would be, I'm gonna repeat it. I'm gonna say "Strange Piece of China" by Yenke. This book is happy, it makes me happy. Some parts are really dark, but I literally giggled at some of the parts reading this book. There are some really stupid things happening in this book, and it just makes you want to laugh. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about this one for now. Number 12. Most beautiful book I've bought or received, and this one I have to show it because it's the prompt is visual in nature, and it's this one by Margaret Yourcenar. I've always wanted to read this one, although it certainly gives off that kind of heavy vibe, that kind of highbrow, intellectual, vibes. Memoirs of Hadrian. And this one was written in French and was translated by Grace Frick with the help of the author. And first of all, I think that the cover is really beautiful. I try not to mishandle this book as as best as possible, because it's just really gorgeous, and it has pictures inside as well. More pictures and more pictures. One could say that this is a picture book. Anyway, I actually started reading this book, but I'm reading this one really slowly because, one, I don't know my Roman emperors, I don't know my Roman history, and two, I think that the writing is quite nice, and it doesn't make sense for me to just speed through the writing, because there is a certain kind of tone, this tender tone and rhythm to the writing that really warrants a slow and steady reading speed. So yeah, I'm currently reading this one right now, but it's also the best looking book I have that I bought this year. And the last one is, let's see what we have. Books that I need to read this year. And first of all, I am minimizing the use of the word need in my life right now, because I think that word is just too forceful. Sometimes you don't really need that much force. So I'm gonna change it a bit, and I'm gonna say books that I want to read, really want to read this year. I have a few. The first one is Sarong Party Girls, which technically, well, I have gotten into this book. I have started reading this book, and so it's really interesting. It's written in Singlish, and I just really like the tone of this book. Sarong Party Girls by Cheryl Lulian Tan. Sort of forgot the name of the author. Yeah, this is a book about a group of shallow, vapid women who they live in Singapore, and their main goal in life is to get a white husband, which is sort of like a status symbol in their society. So yeah, this is something. I also want to read this one. I've wanted to read this for a long time, by Alfred Dublin. This is Berlin Alexander Platz. This one was translated by Michael Hoffman. Long description at the back, but I don't know what it means. But I know that this book is giving off that kind of nice vibes with, so I really want to read this one. And also, similarly, for the same reason, Tomb of Sand by Gitanjali Sri, translated from the Hindi to English by Daisy Rockwell. I got this book before it won the prize, so I didn't exactly want to read this book because it won the prize. Just saying. Anyway, that's all for this video, and I'll see you again in a different one. Let me know if you have any comments. I mean, if you have any comments, just type them down. You don't have to tell me if you have any comments. Yeah, and let me know if if you have any responses to any of these prompts as well. Maybe you have read some of the books that I mentioned here as well. Let me know what you think, or anything you want to tell. Just comment, like, subscribe, share. I'm not sure if this is particularly shareable, but anyway, that's all. I'll see you again in a different video. So thank you for watching. Bye.